There are certain things Joe Biden must have to be president. He must have ice cream, he must have banisters, and he must have a teleprompter. Without these things, Joe Biden is unable to perform his presidential duties. Over the weekend, Joe Biden went off teleprompter again and led everybody to believe he was calling for regime change in Russia. The White House had to immediately walk this back, but today the press asked him himself, was he walking it back? And he said this.
I'm not walking anything back. The fact of the matter is I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward the way Putin is dealing in the actions of this man. Just brutality. This
is coming after the White House spent the whole last week just walking back two other off-the-cuff comments from the commander-in-chief. Biden said we'd have American boots on the ground in Ukraine, and the U.S. could maybe use a chemical weapon on Russia. But if you ask Biden, none of that ever happened.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
It made it sound like, just in the last couple days, it sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia, and we know
none of the three occurred.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
Actually, all three occurred, and this is what he said.
If chemical weapons were used in Ukraine, would that trigger a military response from NATO?
It would trigger a response in kind.
Look at how they're stepping up. Look at how they're stepping up. And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there.
We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principles, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
This can't keep happening. Biden's mouth is becoming a threat to national security. He has to stay on script. And he doesn't even remember what he's talking about half the time. And when he tries to clean up his own comments, he's starting to sound a little bit like Kamala Harris. Listen.
Does it complicate the diplomacy of this moment?
No, I don't think it does. You know, the fact is that we're in a situation where what complicates the situation at the moment is the escalatory efforts of Putin to continue to engage in carnage, the kind of behavior that makes the whole world say, my God, what is this man doing? That's what complicates things a great deal, but I don't think it complicates it at all.
Kamala Harris sounds sharper than Joe Biden now. How is it that Kamala had a better trip to Europe than Joe? He's even dividing our NATO allies, the French especially. And you know Joe's become a kind of a problem when even the French are pissed. It's no shock that the American public has no confidence in his ability. He's become a walking liability. Even Chuck Todd is starting to realize it.
By a fairly large 71 to 28% margin, Americans say they do not have a lot of confidence in President Biden's ability to respond to this war. 57% say we are already at war with Russia or will be within a year, a very pessimistic view.
Worst of all, Joe's giving Putin a giant propaganda victory, where the Kremlin and Russian state television just paint the U.S. as the real aggressors. That keeps the war going. We're empowering Putin every time we let Joe go off script. Whatever happened to the adults being back in the room? Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who sits on the Foreign Relations Committee, joins me now. Are you surprised by these comments, Senator?
Well, you know, a lot of times when you're around somebody who's in cognitive decline, you find yourself trying to help them with the sentence, trying to help them complete it and saying, oh, no, that's not what you really mean. Let me help you complete the sentence. But we shouldn't have to do that for the commander-in-chief. And it is actually a national security risk because he's sending signals that no one in their right mind would want to send to Russia at this point. We aren't trying to replace Putin in Russia. We aren't trying to have regime change. We're not sending troops into Ukraine. And we're not going to respond in kind lined with chemical weapons. So none of those things are true, but you know, he lives in an alternate universe where he just says they're not true and he didn't say them, so I guess you're supposed to look the other way. But even the left-wing media is noticing these gaffes. So I do think that it is a real problem, and there's a humorous angle to this, but it's really not funny. I mean, because we're worried about what he's saying precipitating or escalating, you know, the conflict in Ukraine into a world war. That's very serious.
You're right. It's not like when Joe mixes up his sister with his wife. Those are funny gaffes, and we laugh, oh, Uncle Joe. This is serious. The stakes are high. Do you think we're reaching a point where people in the White House might have to stage an intervention?
You know, it's just intemperate speech is what it is, and we have it in the Senate as well. I mean, we've had different senators go on and say, oh, well, we should assassinate Putin. Well, the thing is by saying that, it makes peace or a resolution of the conflict more difficult, because if you say someone's going to be assassinated or taken to The Hague and strung up from the nearest tree, it makes it much harder to see an exit ramp where that person can finally decide, hey, this war didn't go so well, maybe I'm going to go back to Russia. But if there's going to be a fight to the bitter end and it requires an unconditional surrender, most war doesn't end that way. So I think we should all be careful. Not only should President Biden be careful, but members of the Senate and those of us who are on television should be careful about saying things, because everybody wants to be over the top to say more and more and more. And as we say more, it actually can be a deterrent. That language can ultimately be a deterrent. I think the Ukrainians have fought this to a standstill. I think the Ukrainians have a chance. They can push him out, but we don't want to indicate that there is no possible chance that Putin could leave Ukraine without being, you know, utterly forced to surrender.
I think you're talking about Senator Lindsey Graham, your colleague. And how would you have handled this Ukraine situation differently if you were commander in chief? What would you have said differently, and how would you have done things differently?
I think you have to be very, very careful with your words. So Zelensky is a hero because he's under attack, and he could and should say everything to get the world to come to his back. But the people saying things like, oh, we should have a no-fly zone should think before they speak, because that means really we would be in direct conflict and our planes would be shot down not only by their planes, but by their surface-to-air missiles as well. So I think the main thing is for all of us is being a little more thoughtful before we speak, and maybe not always saying everything that comes to your mind. There's something in foreign policy they call strategic ambiguity, and that's one of the reasons we you know, you guys ask all the questions, and our temptation is to unleash and give all the answers, but maybe sometimes in foreign policy we should be a little bit more restrained in what we say. Other than that, I think actually we've done a pretty good job overall. I mean, people want to criticize the Biden administration. I got lots of complaints. But between President Trump's administration and this, there have been a lot of anti-tank missiles. There have been a lot of Stinger missiles. And really, the arming of Ukraine has gone on for years. And really, when you see them resisting, it's due to their courage, but also to a lot of our weaponry that's already there. So I don't want to badmouth our country and say, oh, we're doing terrible, we got to send in troops. I think that's the wrong message. I think the great message is that Putin has miscalculated. He's come to a standstill. The Ukrainian resistance is more than anybody had ever predicted. The Europeans, including the Germans, are acting in a much stiffer and much more cohesive fashion to oppose this. So there's not a lot going on for Putin. I tell people that even should he take the capital, even should he take the major cities, as long as he occupies Ukraine, the Ukrainians are going to be picking off one Russian shoulder at a time, even if it's 10 years from now, because he's so bombed their civilian centers and bombed civilians that the anger is there and it's not going to dissipate. He thought this was going to be Crimea, but in the end, this is, I think that the Ukrainians are there for the long haul.
It'll be like swallowing a porcupine, as they say. Senator Rand Paul, thanks so much for joining us.